going on? It's Quinn David Furness. Welcome to my show. Quinn David Furness presents the Beantown podcast for Sunday, March 8th, 2020. What's happening? What's going on? Daylight savings time has started. And I tell you what, I feel like we get a lot more of the daylight savings time. Is it daylight saving time or daylight savings time? Savings, right? SAVINGS, almost a palindrome. I feel like you get a lot more of the national kind of discussion / uproar over daylight savings time when it ends rather than when it begins. Maybe that's your experience, maybe it's not. I feel like I haven't seen anything about it today, and I feel like typically you usually see in news articles like the history of daylight savings time, you know, Dolly Madison and Dolly Parton and stuff inventing it, and Ben Franklin, I think, with the key and the lightning and stuff. And then you get, you know, the article in Vogue that's like why daylight savings time is the worst thing to ever happen to humanity. I don't know. It's interesting. I have a kind of specific niche take on it because I know people that really despise DST, as we call it. You know, it's kind of quick. It's faster. DST. It's like that shoe store, DFW or whatever. That's an airport too, but DFW DTW something. I don't know. There's a shoe store. I never go to shoe stores to buy shoes. I go to my cobbler. But DST is something where I think it's silly that we have two different sort of periods going on here. But I would love it if we just permanently moved the clocks to this hour ahead format. And if the rest of the world wants to do it too, they can, but they certainly don't have to. My rationale for this is seemingly simple, at least in my mind. It's the sunlight is always more valuable to me at the end of the day than it is at the beginning of the day. Because frankly, and maybe you experience this as well, but I'm not doing anything before I get to the office in the morning, regardless, that really requires any specific level of mental energy or focus, because wake up, shower, brush your teeth, change, take the train down to the office, usually will rest, sleep, close my eyes, whichever, while I'm on the train. And I'm not, until I get that cup of coffee going, which I'm going to talk about a cup of coffee from hell in 1 second here, but not for the reasons you think. I'm not doing anything. So why do I care if the sun is out, if it's dark? It doesn't matter to me. But what's really nice is, like right now, I'm recording this. It's about 6:15 p.m. local time here on the north side of Chicago. And still got a decent amount of sunlight going. You know, the sun's not going to go completely away for another hour or so here, a little hour plus maybe. And I just, you know, it's way nicer. Not that I'm doing anything today, but when you come home on a weekday from work, you get home, it's still light out. It's way easier for me to go back out, do something fun, see some people, make some moves, right, ladies? Make some moves. Roscoe's on a Friday night, anyone? Roscoe's, Closet, IHOP. It's the triple threat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just do some Google Maps searching and you'll find out soon enough. Where was I? That having that hour, that extra sunlight at the end of the day as you get into the night is way more valuable to me. I when it's winter, you know, being cold is one thing, but it really makes it difficult mentally to want to go out. If I come back to my apartment and I get back when it's dark, the chances of me going back out in that same night are like minuscule. Like the chances of Richard Simmons winning a Grammy. It's just the odds are not in your favor. Okay, Susan Collins, the odds are against you. So daylight savings time started today, but my body pulled a weird thing, man. And normally daylight savings time, whether it begins or ends, doesn't really change anything for me. I remember as a kid being excited to get the extra hour of sleep or yada yada yada. Now I don't care. So I go to bed last night, or I get into bed at about midnight local time. I wasn't doing anything. I got home from work. I had to work yesterday. I got home at about 7:30. I spent the next 4.5 hours on my couch watching 30 Rock, eating chili and some popcorn as well, which was my cheat meal for the week here. And next thing I know, it's time to go to bed. I don't even remember what I was doing. One of those nights / just periods of time where you're at home and multiple hours go by, and next thing you know, this happens to me obviously on the weekends more than the weekdays, but you kind of think back and you're like, what have I been doing? Typically it's some combination of YouTube, Twitter, and Reddit. And I try not to get down on myself when I feel that, because usually those periods are relaxing. It's kind of nice. It's kind of freeing to not always be a slave to the clock and feel like you got to do X, Y, and Z before this time happens. Anyways, it's a delicate balance here. But I mentioned something weird happened. My body literally woke me up. I did not set an alarm because family chat was delayed an hour today. So I wasn't even worried about setting an alarm because that wasn't starting until 10:30. I had tons and tons of time this morning. My body wakes me up at 6 a.m. sharp. And that's not a normal thing. Whether I get 9 hours of sleep or whether it's like last night where end up getting 5 hours of sleep because I went to bed at about midnight, changed my clock so that they read 1. But I don't really have any explanation. And it wasn't like yesterday, because occasionally what will happen is, if you have a really slow day or a really lazy day and then you go to bed, your body's like, no, we're good after 5 or 6 hours. And it just wakes you up. No, yesterday I worked, ran for 5 miles by the lake. I was out most of the day. It was a tiring day. But my body woke me up after 5 hours of sleep. So even though we lost the hour overnight, my body not only made up for it by a full hour, but then went an extra mile and did another hour. So instead of my normal wake up time, which is 8, body woke me up at 6. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm kind of sleepy, I guess I'll go back to bed. Nope, it was I listened to an entire Green Day album. If you're curious, hey, what do you think Quinn Furness does when he wakes up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning and he's got a lot of time before grocery shopping and breakfast and family chat? Well, to answer your question, listeners, I listened to an entire Green Day album. You might be wondering, hey, which one do you think he's listening to? Yeah, which one? It was 21st Century Breakdown, which didn't get any sort of any of the glitz and glamour kind of recognition that American Idiot got, but it's a very similar concept and has some bangers on it too. So go check it out if you don't know it. And Green Day is I'll be seeing them live, first time in my life, August 13th I think it is, with Weezer and Fall Out Boy, who I don't care about Fall Out Boy, but Pete Wentz. So this morning was fine. Yesterday morning was an absolute, and before I choose my next word here, which is a compound word, remember learning about those in school? It's when you have two words and you put them together. Listener discretion is advised when you're listening to the Beantown podcast. Number 1, we'll occasionally use some questionable language. And number 2, what is number 2? The podcast is objectively terrible. I wanted to say this podcast is not for kids, which it's not. It's not designed. I don't think I've ever talked about this on my show. It's not designed for, really anybody to listen to in general, but specifically kids. It's not that most of my episodes discuss not family friendly topics. Is there like a clean antonym for family friendly? Because inappropriate could refer to lots of things beyond it just being not consumable or not suitable for children. I don't know. Well, we're going to have to look into this. Antonym. Antonym. Hell of a word. Yesterday was a shit show. Okay, so to give you just a tiny bit of backstory, I'll make it as simple and not mundane as possible. I have coffee at home, a big bag of beans. The 3 B's, a big bag of beans. And you know what's something that we used to have oftentimes as kids on like vacations or something? Boston baked beans. It's like a candy. And I don't think I've had a Boston baked bean in at least 7 or 8 years of my life, I don't think. But it was a somewhat common thing. I guess I just don't have candy in general these days, but I never see Boston baked beans. Did they go, I was about to say in sync. Then I was about to sing a Britney Spears song, which in my head was registering as an in sync song. Baby, bye, 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 bye. But I wanted to sing Hit Me Baby One More Time. They all sound the same to me. Did Boston baked beans go extinct? Boston baked beings, human beings, the Human Fund. So I brew my own coffee typically only on Sunday mornings for family chat. I have a grinder. No single man, not that kind. Although I will say I live 1 block from the Chicago Leather Archives and Museum, which is a space dedicated to all things leather, as in the sexual fetish. It's wild. It's just right here in the neighborhood. I won't say anything disparaging about it. I don't have anything disparaging to say. It's just wild that it's right there. And it's Scott Farrell's book, which I'm working on, by the way. I promise. He eventually will get there, because I've sort of perused casually, a casual perusal through some of the back half of the book, which is where it gets really exciting. He speaks of going to this space. But there's also Touche, a leather bar, directly like 2 blocks west of me on Clark, and it's next door to Jackhammer. They're both gay bars. I think Touche is an explicitly leather bar. I think Jackhammer is more like just like a dive bar that is populated by gay men. But Touche seems to have more of like this exclusive and frankly kind of scary thing. Like there's a back room where it's only men allowed. And I think it's just have all the sex you want, which is interesting. I brew my own coffee on Sunday mornings only. The other days of the week, Monday through Friday, I have it at the office. Saturdays, if I go out to breakfast, I'll just have it there, yada, yada, yada. I usually have coffee just somewhere else besides my house. So yesterday I kind of had a weird setup where I had to work, but not until midday, and I was going for a run, so I wanted that little boost of coffee, but I wasn't going out to breakfast, so I decided to brew it myself, do everything normally, grind my beans, which you go down to the leather archives means something very different, but in this context, it means I'm putting my coffee beans into an electric grinder and brew my coffee, drink it, and I don't know if it was the coffee or if my body was just doing some weird shit yesterday. I think it was more of that, the latter than the former. But I just got amped up, jittery as hell, way beyond the point of like, oh, this is kind of cool. I got a lot of energy, all the way to the point of, hot damn, this feels atrocious. I don't know if I'm going to go run a 4-minute mile or if I'm going to puke. I don't know if riding the train is a good idea. I did it anyways. I never Never threw up. In fact, I never had really any physical issues. And the weird thing, my heart was not racing. It was a very normal heartbeat. This was all inside my head. It was nuts. I go for the run. It kind of wore off a little bit, but even like when I got home last night, I felt fine, but like my cheeks were really warm. I don't know. You might be saying, hey, maybe it's that COVID-19 coronavirus. Oh boy. I'm glad we got there, because there's been a lot of talk and a lot of people have been tweeting at us. We're on Twitter at Beantown Cast. There have been emails pouring in, direct messages, snail mail. The neighbors across the street put up what were those things called? Glow Bright or something? You guys know what? Light Bright? Is that what it is? You guys know what I'm talking about? With like the lights that you put into the little pegs and you make some fun pictures. Speaking of pegs, the Leather Archives and Museum right here in Rogers Park, Chicago. But a lot of talk about coronavirus. They're saying, hey, Quinn, we're looking for some answers. We're looking for some leadership in these trying and troubling times. And frankly, up until yesterday, I was sort of just letting my good friend, Pastor Jim Baker, run the show here for you all. But he just received a nasty letter from, I don't know, some big time like government prosecutor. I didn't actually read the story, just the headline. Saying that he has to cease and desist advertising his silver formula that he sells on his television show, which if you've never seen Jim Baker's television show, it's fascinating. It's like the Home Shopping Network, but Christian. It's really, they get some good music on there too. People get ready. There's a crisis coming. They really, these kind of hyper evangelicists are really into this whole apocalypse thing. But what makes no sense to me, I promise I'm getting back to the coronavirus, but what makes no sense to me about this sort of relationship between crazy like white Southern, I say Trump, but he's not really part of this discussion. But Jim Baker and his posse are big Trump people. Those people and this like obsession with the apocalypse and the end of days, as they say in the book of Revelation, which if you never read, Revelation is a wild book, man. The Bible has some crazy stuff in it. And we're in the season of Lent right now, and we're getting to Passover soon, as we are to Easter. And every year when we do our Easter special, I like to tell the story of the first Passover, because it's just a classic moment with the 10th plague where God just wipes out like a quarter of the Egyptian population. It's just a fun story. But that's not even the weirdest stuff you get in the Bible. You go to Revelation, that is some crazy stuff. You read Song of Solomon, and people joke about it, but it's legit like softcore porn. And hey, I'm not really complaining here, but it's just you a lot of times if you just go to church and you let people pick and choose, or pastors pick and choose what sort of books or verses or chapters they want to preach on, and you don't actually pick up the Bible for yourself, then you'll miss out on a lot of, this kind of hardcore action. In fact, while I was saying that, I picked up a copy of Song of Solomon. And let's just, last thing before we get to back to the coronavirus here. So this is, if you're following along, I feel like I'm going into preacher mode here, which I used to get paid to do. If you're following along here in your Bibles at home, I'm using the, I don't know, NTV or something, MTV. That's the way you do it. You play that guitar on your MTV. Ah, that ain't working. That's the way you do it. Get your money for nothing and your chicks for free. If you're following it along in your Bible, it's on my phone. I don't know the version, so I apologize. We're going to Song of Solomon, chapter or book 7, verses 1 through 5. This is the greatest coronavirus discussion you're ever going to find. How graceful are your... here we go. Okay. This is what it says. How graceful are your feet in sandals, O queenly maiden. Also my nickname in college. It keeps going. Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Oh, baby. If you're getting hot and heavy at work, just take a quick pause. Take a breather. Okay, take a cold shower. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. That part didn't do it for me. Mixed wine? What? It's lost in translation from the Greek, I guess. Your belly... This is great. Your belly is a heap of wheat. I'm not making this up. This is in the Bible. You never hear people talk about it. Come on. I'm not joking. Song of Solomon, book 7, chapter 7, verse 2. This reminds me of Wichita State, who won their game versus Tulsa today. And they're starting the American tournament on Thursday. Or their first game's on Friday, actually. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. We gotta find a way to incorporate that phrase into our marketing or something. Moving ahead here. Oh, here we go. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Hot damn. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon by the gate of Beth Rabim. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon overlooking Damascus. Your head crowns you like caramel, and your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. That's some good stuff. That is some wild stuff. But going back to this conversation about the coronavirus here, a couple things. One, the fact that Trump and his posse, which we'll talk about in 1 second here, are playing this they're playing this down as much as possible, and Trump's responding to doctors who are asking him how he knows so much about medicine and this stuff, and him saying he just has a hunch. Maybe he's just got a natural talent for this stuff. It's really interesting. We don't have time on this podcast or on any podcast because it's a really deep dive to dig into this whole schism between the Republican Party, or at least the face of the Republican Party, or the faces, and this like anti-science thing, like it's way deeper than just this religion versus science thing. There's so much more to it. It involves being college educated and yada yada yada. But it's such a weird play, you know. And it goes back to this. I didn't finish my thought. I'm glad I raised this point, because one thing I want to say about Jim Bakker's followers is you got all these people. So then we started talking about the Bible. All these people who are freaking out about the apocalypse, and they're buying Jim Bakker's buckets and all that stuff. If you don't know Jim Bakker's buckets, stop right now. Go to YouTube. Just find like the Vic Berger 5 minutes or something about Jim Bakker's buckets. It's some weird shit, man. But then you also have these people who, right, you believe in heaven, right? And that's supposed to be the greatest thing of all time. Way better than anything going on here on Earth. So wouldn't you, like, want to get there ASAP? Those two things they're not clicking. They're not clicking for me. The other thing, Trump's, going back to the coronavirus, Trump's team. So Mike Pence is in charge, which is funny. But apparently Ben Carson has also joined the cause. And we were talking about this on Family Chat this morning. Ben Carson and Betsy DeVos. Maybe it's because it's just they're not sexy people to cover in the media, but does anybody really know what they're doing? Betsy DeVos, I think, is a little bit easier to keep track of because she's just making a lot of cuts. And that seems to be like her thing. But does anybody know what Ben Carson does? I mean, he's a surgeon who is in charge of housing and urban development. It just doesn't seem like it really adds up. If anyone has any insight on this, email us, beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. Again, that's Beantown, B-E-A-N, podcast at yahoo.com. Or you can call us, I don't know, tweet at us, Instagram at q.queend, whatever you want to do. I don't care. Doesn't change my life. We got an email from, so I work, my name, I don't work with them. My name is in this database of this third-party podcasting website that attempts to hook podcasts up with sponsors. So I get an email from this site, and they are saying, "Hey, Quinn, we found a company that might be a good fit for you." It's a company where you pay monthly to this company, and they ship you gold, which sounds right up our alley. Kind of takes me back to the whole Rock Chris incident, which I think was like a year ago this time. Classic Nigerian kind of rags to riches story. And then I flipped the tables on the guy, and he got really pissed off. Oh, well. He made it into a race thing. That's his problem. But yeah, you pay this company, I don't know how much a month, like $50 a month or something, and they send you gold, so you can feel like a pirate.
Our pirate's bounty. About that ship, Jack. Have you seen the pearl?
And so I shot them a message, and they didn't respond. So if you're wondering, hey, Quinn, where's the advertisement for gold? I thought you were going to be advertising gold on this episode. No, sorry to disappoint. But speaking of advertisements, now would be a good time to get there. And I have a couple of things I'm going to get to in the second half here, including a new segment, which is going to be about movies. One movie per week in particular. It's going to be short. I didn't write anything for it, but I think I'm going to have fun. And it's when I actually talk about the series or the movie, it'll be serious. So if you're looking for we'll just get to it. Jump ahead like 15 minutes or something. I don't know. Let me read these ads, okay? Get off my back. You're not my dad. Home Pride, Oregon. Are you tired of selling your house for less than a quarter of what it's worth, all because you couldn't find a reliable home inspector in time? Well, Oregon listeners, there's good news. Home Pride Inspection Services in Bend, Oregon is Central Oregon's hottest new home inspection provider with inspection services including things like heating and cooling, roofing, plumbing, and so much more. Home Pride Oregon is both contractor certified and home inspection certified, so you know you're getting the good stuff. If you're tired of big real estate's wranglehold on the home inspection market and you want a safe, certified home inspector that you can trust, you got to call Steve at 541-410-0316 or just visit homeprideoregon.com. Again, it's 541-410-0316 or visit homeprideoregon.com. Home Pride Oregon, inspection perfection. I was on Instagram watching stories as I was reading that ad. That's how good I've gotten at this. A shout out to the Samson Q2U series. That crisp, clean audio quality. It sounds good on minute 1. It'll sound good on minute 60 or whenever we finish. And even reading the Bible. So it's the Samson Q2U series, so you think it'd be natural. But not just in its home book, which Samson is what? 2 Kings? Something like that? Chronicles. We get a fact check. Should get a Bible intern for the show. It'd be good. Got a lot of homeschool friends I could ask. Even in other books of the Bible, and even when we're not reading from the Bible, it sounds great because when God speaks, he uses a Samson. All right. Remember when we did that like 10 minutes ago? That was wild. Cuts by Q. Oh, here we go. I love this one. Bob and weave. We all know the hairstyle. We all love it. But how many Chicago-based independent barbers can actually give it to you the way you deserve? Enter Cuts by Q. It's just like Enter Sandman, but different. Cuts by Q has been independently owned and operated since 1995 and is probably one of the better barbershop operations serving Chicago, Cook County, and the greater Chicagoland area, and Northwest Indiana. People don't often talk about Northwest Indiana, but it's true. Valparaiso, which is a Christian school, right? Someone check on that. Valparaiso lost to Bradley. The Missouri Valley Conference was the tournament. Arch Madness was nuts this year. The top 3 seeds all lost their first games. Uni, Northern Iowa, Loyola, Chicago. It's always interesting. I say Loyola, and most of the people I know say Loyola, but you hear a lot of older people, not old people, but older people say Loyola. I don't know. We'll have to get our speech pathology contacts on the case. But and then whoever number 3 was, which was like, gosh, I don't even know. Indiana State, maybe. I don't know if that's right. They all lost. So it ended up being 8-4, I think. And Bradley won. The Braves. Is that right? Bradley Braves, Bradley Bears. Braves, I think. They're going to the tournament. They're going dancing. Calling out around the world. Dancing in the street. Dancing in Chicago. Dancing in the street. All you need is music, sweet music. Do 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 do. They'll be laughing, singing, and people dancing, dancing in the street. I was trying to do Bowie and it turned into Michael McDonald. I've been loving, I've been loved too. I've been here many times before. Don't you worry, I know where I stand. I'll be my who. I lost it. I was trying to do minute by minute, but I don't actually know the words, which is fun. I should have tried Yamo Be There. Okay, that's the ad reads for today. I want to tell a story, an interesting story here. 3 more things I'm going to get to. I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to talk about a hockey game I went to briefly because there's no good story. I just wanted to let you know I did it. And then I'm going to finish with our last segment here, which is a news segment. A story which I've been given permission to tell. It's in a prime spot, leading off the second half of our content here. So my dear friend Kelly, my pal Kelly. For those who know her, it's a pun. It's a good pun. My good pal Kelly has recently moved into a new space where I assume it's a 2-bedroom apartment down in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. I don't know if that refers to floor plans as well, but regardless, new apartment. She has a room, and then she lives with a married couple, male and a female. She's good friends with the female. Doesn't know the male quite as well. I think they have a fine working relationship. Like me and, I don't know, Brian Scalabrine. Thanks to Brian for the shout out a couple years ago. Kelly has just moved in there, literally like 2 weeks ago. And her friend is going on a work trip coming up here. Very exciting. Work trips, always fun. Well, here's the kicker. And when I heard this story this past week, it physically took me a couple of moments to think about it, to physically comprehend just how bogus this situation is. The female friend who's going on a work trip is not comfortable with Kelly staying in the apartment, which is now her apartment, by the way, while the friend is on the work trip, because it would be weird to have it just be Kelly and the husband. I'll give you a couple moments to digest what I'm saying to you. It's a weird Christian thing. According to Kelly, no one says it like that. According to Kelly, the friend had sought out the advice and counsel of a multitude of Christian mentors. Probably Jim Bakker, maybe Joel Osteen. Is Joel Osteen's church in Texas? Or is it like Oklahoma? Where is it? Arkansas. Why did I put a Z in there? Arkansas. I don't know. We'll look it up. But the mentors encouraged the friend to ask Kelly to not be in the apartment for that week while the friend was out. I don't even have much commentary on this because it's just like, oh man, this is not okay. I mean, that's an easy like lawsuit for Kelly to win if she wanted to, and it's not going to come to that. But it's just like, I don't even have anything else to say to Kel. I told her everything I wanted to say. Say what you need to say. But for this friend, like, you got to get a hold of your shit, lady and husband. Like, what a way to ruin a friendship. My God. Awful, awful behavior. So I just wanted to share that live on air so that people out there know that this sort of weird shit is happening. And it's really messed up, I feel like. Anyways. Okay, I went to a Blackhawks game on, Thursday night? Ooh, I just won in shuffleboard. Nice. Doing a lot of multitasking today. And went to a Blackhawks game on Thursday night, which is say, okay, whatever. It was my first ever Blackhawks game. First ever NHL game. I'd never been before. Been to a couple of AHL games. And I'd even been to the USA national team headquarters in Plymouth, Michigan, in their home arena. But I'd never been to an NHL game. So I went to the UC. Tickets are pretty cheap these days because the Blackhawks are awful. which is a blessing and a curse. But I went with my new female friend, who's fantastic, and then we'll talk about her on future episodes, I'm sure. But it was fun. We won 4-3, beat the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton, hell of a place up there in Alberta. A lot of oil up there from my preliminary research. Edmonton Oilers. Are they, maybe we could get a fact check on this. Were the Edmonton Oilers the most recent Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup? I don't know the answer to that. My hunch says yes. And I'm thinking maybe it was like, I don't know. How does 1994 tickle ya? What does that year do for you? Huh? Okay, as I'm looking it up right now, you all get to take your bets. So this is a two-parter. And the chance of me actually getting this right is about as good of a chance of Richard Simmons winning a Tony. But okay. So my guess, two things. First, my guess is yes, the Oilers are the most recent Canadian team to have won a Stanley Cup. It's been a long time. It's been not in the 21st century. It's been all American teams. And number two, the year. I feel a lot more confident in the team than the year, but even then, I don't actually feel that confident in either one. So let's go to the big board. We're on Wikipedia. Okay. So we're scrolling. So it's not 1994. Oh, I'm going to be wrong on both accounts, aren't I? Oh, this is just embarrassing. Okay, I was 1 year off on the year, but I got the team wrong. So you're for all of you at home who guessed the Montreal Canadiens, you'd be right. They beat the Los Angeles Kings 4-1 in 1993. Although in general, I was not far off. The Edmonton Oilers won the 1990 Stanley Cup over the Boston Bruins 4-1 in 1990. So, yeah, I botched that one. But it is wild that Canada hasn't won a Stanley Cup in, 26 years now? Yeah, that's crazy. They haven't even been in one for a while, I think. Not since Vancouver in 2011 with all the riots and stuff. Ottawa was in there in 2007. I forgot about that. But, okay. Sorry for the hockey talk. It was fun. If you've never been to a hockey game, I actually really like them because you can hear everything going on down in the ice, which is neat. A lot of hockey sound effects in general are fantastic. It's kind of like that ASMR stuff, which I thought was like a sexual thing until a couple weeks ago. I learned it doesn't have to be, but it could be. A lot of good noises. There's not a lot of dead time in hockey. A lot of action. And it's just hockey is a very exciting sport to watch in general. It's not like, I don't know, some sports can just be really... I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. You get a game where it gets out of hand early, you got another 2.5 hours of just coasting. It's not exciting. Same goes for like NASCAR, which I was just watching today. Logano with his second win of the season already in 4 races. And today's race was good, but like last week in California, the only cautions were the stage cautions. Boring as F race. Hockey is almost never boring, especially, and I stand by this. I have a couple things that I like to stand by. One of them is that hockey players are some of the most underrated athletes in the world. Them and tennis players, those are my big two. But what I actually want to say, over playoff hockey overtime, there's nothing else like it in the world, because it's sudden death. They play until someone scores, and I know what you're saying. Well, you go to football, that's kind of sudden death too. It is, but it isn't. But in hockey, you can have one team have a shot on goal, and literally 5 seconds later, the other team has a shot on goal. There's no other sport like that with sudden death. It is exhausting in all the best ways. So there's my little plug for hockey. Maybe we'll get a sponsorship Okay. So quick last thing before I introduce our last segment here. On that third-party podcasting site that tries to hook up podcast shows with companies for endorsements, I was scrolling through to see some of the companies that were listed. You won't believe who's on there. The Calgary Flames. I did not reach out to them. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll send them this little snippet that I've been doing, and we'll see what they say. Okay, let's get into our last segment here, and we even created some fun intro to the segment. So go ahead, take it away.
And now it's time for our new segment, older movies that people don't talk about these days, but damn, they're really good and people should talk about them more.
Okay, thanks for that great lead-in. So this week, our first ever installment, and there was really nothing that prompted me to select this movie in particular. I was just thinking about it. I was in the shower waiting for the hot water to kick in, which took a while this morning. And I was thinking to myself, you know what movie is classic? And I say an older movie. I'm not talking like Humphrey Bogart here. I'm saying, we're going back 25 years for this one. Not 25 years, 20 years for this one. Castaway. From 2001, maybe. The other thing is I didn't research these films before jumping into talking about them. Everything I'm saying is just off the top of my head, off the cuff, sort of how I feel. But the point of this segment, which I could have done before I announced the film, but is to really just sort of re-highlight a film that got plenty of praise in its time for how good it was, but I just feel like people these days don't consider it to be like a classic, when in fact I think it absolutely should be. So it's directed by Robert Zemeckis, who did like Back to the Future and stuff, and Stuart Little, maybe? Is that right? Oh man, we gotta look it up. This went from a discussion on Castaway to trying to figure out who directed Stuart Little. I don't think he did. There's no way. No, he did not. To clear things up. But I don't know why I thought that. Random thought. This whole podcast has been a little scattered. It's okay. It's been fun. Tom Hanks, of course, in the starring role, and then Helen Hunt plays the female in the film. Is what I'm trying to get at. But Tom Hanks plays Chuck from Memphis. He works for FedEx. And if you don't know the film, basically he travels a lot for work, like yours truly. And plane crash, ends up on a desert island for, I think, 7 years, something like that. But the film, what I really like to highlight, because these are things I think about more so than anything else, are these sort of technical aspects of it. So things like cinematography, music, lighting, rather than just what's the plot, who's in it. I try to go beyond those things because those kind of surface level things fade after a while. There's a lot more to a movie than just the names and the plot. But one of my favorite things about this film, I think it's completely underrated. From the time Tom Hanks lands on the island, or at least hits the water, I think, from the plane crash, up until the time he's finally getting his raft to work, as he's making his final escape, there's no music, which is something that is just brilliantly done. The score is by Alan Silvestri, and it's a beautiful, extremely moving score. But you don't get any music for that portion of the film, which I think is probably about an hour or so he spends on the island by himself. Another fantastic aspect about this film is, and actors and actresses go through crazy weight loss transformations all the time for this stuff, but it's not always done where you have two different looks for one film, and it's real. So Tom Hanks gained a bunch of weight, not a bunch, but some, to start the film, and then went on a crazy crash diet. I've never actually researched what Tom Hanks' diet was for Castaway. I'm going to do that after we finish up here, because I know like the Christian Bale one for The Machinist is like a cup of coffee and a can of tuna, I think, or an apple, something like that per day. I don't know what Tom Hanks was, but they film, the first couple scenes of the movie, which it lasts like 20 minutes or something before the crash, and then they had to stop production for months so Tom Hanks could lose this weight. There's no digital CGI or anything, and that's an impressive feat. It's one thing to lose a bunch of weight or gain a bunch of weight for a role. It's another thing to do filming, then do it, and then film again, all for one project. It's pretty fantastic. In a vein similar to that, if you've never actually taken the time to see Boyhood, you absolutely should. It is tremendous. I feel like it got a lot of press, but I don't think it got like the glory that it deserved. I think it totally deserved that. It wasn't a stunt movie. It was really well done. Ethan Hawke is fantastic in that movie, as he is in every role, of course. But other things with Castaway, it's also just, and I try to focus on the technical aspects of it, not the plot so much, but just the way it ends, where he comes back, and it's one thing to watch it on the screen, but if you imagine that actually happened to you, and you came back, and the person who was your life, your rock, when you had this life-altering event, you somehow make it back, you're lucky enough, and they moved on, they buried you, they're married, they have kids. That's just, man, that's a quick path to some dark stuff right there. And I like how ambiguous the ending is as well. The crossroads is maybe, I don't know, maybe a little much. The final scene, a little bit too like slap in your face-esque. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it. So that was our first installment. This isn't pre-planned. I didn't decide we were going to do this segment until about 5 minutes before we recorded. So Castaway, if you're looking for a really well thought out, well directed, and extremely well produced film, even if you've seen it before, it's one of those films that it's very rewatchable. So I encourage you all to do that. No, I was not paid by the folks down at, Universal to do it. I don't know what studio produced Castaway. I don't keep track often of movie studios and which movies they produce and which ones they don't. But that's what I got for you today on the Beantown podcast. So we covered a lot of ground. Coronavirus, Dire Straits, other stuff. Next week is going to be the birthday podcast. My birthday is March 16th. It's a Monday this year. This Saturday in Chicago is St. Paddy's Day. So next weekend has a lot happening for it. Friday, the night before, I'm hosting people to watch The Fugitive, a classic St. Paddy's Day and Chicago movie. It's quintessential. I usually watch it by myself. I figured I'd make some drinks and host people this year. In case you're wondering, no, still not drinking and not planning to. It will be my first St. Paddy's Day without a drink for a couple of years. I was thinking about this earlier today on my walk. I went to the beach today, went down to Foster Beach because it's a beautiful day in Chicago. I walked about 5 miles, got some vitamin D, which is nice. I was thinking about this on my walk, kind of the history of my St. Paddy's Days in Chicago. Even though I lived on the East Coast for a couple of years, every St. Paddy's Day was spent back here in Chicago. I don't think I drank anything my senior year. No, my sophomore year of college. I was in the library writing a paper, 10 pages, on Fela Kuti. Hang on. Having this weird moment. Did we ever finish the ad read today for Cuts by Q? I'm not going to go back and check. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't, because I won't walk you through why it popped into my head, but I don't think I did. How did we get off of it? We started talking. I said Chicagoland, then we started talking about Northwest Indiana. I don't know. We ought to finish that, hey? And if I did, then I'm just doing it again, and I'm a mental patient. But I'm doing my due diligence here. From beehives to banks, faux hawks to flat tops, and everything in between, call Cutsbyq at 815-298-7200 or email cutsbyq@yahoo.com. Again, that's cuts, Q-U-T-Z, by Q at yahoo.com. Oh, when you need a fresh do, something snappy and new, just call the experts at Cuts by Q. So that's a quick little finish up of the ad reads there. But... yeah, the St. Paddy's Day will be interesting. I won't be drunk. That's okay. Because the more and more I think about just like drinking, sometimes I miss it a little bit. This is day 68 for me. But I don't miss hangovers. And that doesn't mean there isn't middle ground, because there absolutely is. And that's where I'll operate when I go back to drinking. But the risk of having, 3 drinks, and if you wake up with a hangover, man, those suck. Mine are not good. My first ever hangover was really bad. Then I went through a couple of years where I would get them, but not awful. And now they're back to being really bad. I don't even throw up. I just feel nauseous, but not like, oh, let me just throw up and then I'll probably feel better. Just like completely paralyzed by nausea. Nausea is a bad place to be, man. Like Cleveland after dark, or the betting room if Richard Simmons ever wins a Grammy. Okay? Things to think about. That's all I got for you. Lots to talk about next week. It'll be our birthday show. Maybe I'll get a cake. I don't know. I usually get kind of drunk for my birthday episodes. This will be my 3rd one we've done here on the show. That won't be the case next week, but maybe we'll have a surprise in store for you. And another installment of our new segment. So be on the lookout for that. That's what we got, 58 minutes. That's a long episode. Other stuff happening. Scott Farrell book's going fine. We'll get Matt Fiedler on the podcast soon enough here to do taxes this year. And then he'll also have his Topaz Elite member interview, along with some other friends of the podcast, including my brother Jack. About that shit, Jack. All right, that's what we got for you, everyone. Have a good one. Here's some intro music to play us out. What do you mean to play us out? There are no words there. Do it live. Take it away. I just wanted to add that in there because it comes full circle, because that's Sting, and Sting is whom Bill O'Reilly is actually referring to in that clip, because they're going to play a clip from Sting. In reality, I'm going to play a clip for myself. So here it is, and that's all I got for you. All right, that's it. Bye.